Hey guys, this is Wasted, and today I'm going to bring you an update to my previous Nether videos covering what's new and what's been changed in patch number 5. Now I'm a little late in bringing this information. The patch was actually released last week on the 27th of November. However, the developers have also said that there will not be another major patch now until somewhere around Christmas, as they're hoping to bring quite a lot of content in that one. And so rather than wait for that one and do a big video, I thought I'd bring a small video out quickly just to talk a bit about how these changes have affected the game, because there's a couple of small lines in there that actually have more effect than you might expect. If you'd like to have a look at these patch notes for yourself, maybe while I'm rambling on, then I've included a link below the video. Now I'll be splitting these patch videos up into 3 sections. I'll start off by talking about the changes that have been made, then I'll move on to any new features that have been added into the game, and then I'll finally wrap up talking a bit about the technical aspects and perhaps a little bit about how the patch is going to change the game in the future. So kicking off with what is the big one for a lot of players at the moment: reduced player base speed in walk and crouch. So there's a video up on screen at the moment showing you the differences between the old walk and the new walk speeds. On the left hand side we've got the old walk, on the right hand side we have the new one, and as you can see there's a reasonably large difference between the two. Not only that, but that doesn't tell you the whole story. When it comes to fighting the Nether with this change of speed, the result is that melee combat is a lot more dangerous. You're going to need to use your sprint in order to avoid getting hit. Anytime a Nether teleports, you now have to sprint, whereas before it used to be the case that you could probably just walk away from them and avoid the hit. Of course, a lot of people are not happy with this change and feel that it's slowing the pace of the game down, potentially even just to make it feel like there's more content when there isn't. However, I think it fits perfectly. The fact that you didn't need to use the sprint previously in order to escape the Nether was not something I felt should be intended. The sprint function was obviously there, that was your character sprinting at its fastest pace, and of course you're going to need that in order to run away from these horrible teleporting mutants. So the idea that now that's required, it's much more of an intrinsic part of the gameplay, I think is spot on. The increased reliance on sprinting also means you're more likely to pull Nether during any sort of combat. You run away from one Nether and then you immediately pulled more, which ties in with another gameplay change that they've made that hasn't been documented but seems to be present anyway, and that is that they have fiddled a little bit with some of the Nether aggro mechanics. This is kind of in 2 parts. Firstly, it seems that the Shriekers have been adjusted so that much more frequently they will be bringing other Nether with them. There was times in the past prior to this patch where you would aggro a Shrieker, it would scream, and then you would get nothing from it. Whereas now it seems to be the case that if you aggro a Shrieker, it will have a default number of crawlers that it brings with it, somewhere between 2 and 4, and these are not sort of hard fact figures, this is just what I've experienced from my playing since the patch, but it's certainly the case that they have more aggro potential than they had previously. They've also made some minor tweaks to the Nether's vision, it seems, so that you no longer have this scenario where simply because you're crouching, they are not capable of detecting you, despite the fact that you're right in front of their face. And yeah, it's not a massive change, but it's something that makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to say anything more than that. The next change I'll talk about, and this is personally my favourite of the changes they've introduced in this patch, is to do with the shared XP by nearby players. So which basically means that if you're out and you're killing Nether, people within a certain radius will get XP for the Nether kill as well. It's not the full amount, it's about half of what the full amount for the guy who actually got the killing blow would be. But what this does overall is just encourage people to play together. It means that now as a group you can go out and literally farm Nether to get levels, which is not something that really worked before. Mostly though, I just feel and hope that this is a step in the right direction as far as how to get players to cooperate and play together in a game where kill on sight is often a term that's branded around a lot, because it's one of the biggest issues they face. Obviously there's no strict PvE/PvP environments, and you don't want to encourage that. The whole point of this is that the two things would naturally mix in a survival scenario, but in games at the moment of this type, they tend to mix very, very much for the detriment of the game rather than for the advancement of it. So how they will take ideas like this, and potentially some other stuff they've got in the works, and make them work as far as the community is concerned, will be very, very interesting, and I'm pleased to see that this early on, that's their goal. Another new feature that seems to complement this is the introduction of 2 world events. The first one being a Reaper Surge, which takes place a little bit at random around the map, and is simply a spawning of lots and lots of Nether in one place, and you're encouraged to go and kill them. Now this so far seems to range very much from absolutely no Nether at all, right up to 10 Shriekers all in one place. Much like the safe zone compromise and defense that I mentioned in my first video for Nether, this currently isn't really worth attempting. There's no real reward for it, and there's so many Nether there that mostly what it becomes is a big waste of ammo and meds as you get yourself into a situation that you should never have been in and then try and fight your way out of it. The second world event they've added, however, is a little bit more interesting. This is up in the north of the map in Lake Park, and basically a Reaper, a boss mob, will spawn there, as far as we can tell, about once every hour to an hour and a half. He's about 3 times the size of any other Nether in the game, and unlike the rest of them, he cannot teleport, although he can put on a good turn of speed if you try and run away from him, about the same speed as a player can sprint, so don't expect to escape him that way. If he should hit you, he will knock you back for quite a distance and also apply some sort of slow debuff, meaning that he will then catch you back up again very quickly. Aside from this though, he doesn't really have that many tricks, and if you've got enough ammo and potentially a friend with you in order to bounce the aggro around, he's not that difficult to kill, although do expect to need a good couple of hundred of the rifle shots to take him down. If you do take him down, you're unfortunately going to discover that currently there is no reward for doing so, much like all of the other world events currently in Nether. I do hope that they start to think about how they're going to reward players for this, because making this a intrinsic part of the gameplay could be another one of these methods for making players cooperate, because obviously as he stands he may be killable by one person, but I don't think that will be the easiest way of doing it, and I don't think that's going to be how it lasts either. Now if you are fancying going and killing yourself a Reaper, it's also worth considering that obviously when that pops up on the map, it will attract other players as well, and we've already had problems when at the Reaper trying to fight it with other players PKing us. It's to be expected in a game like this, but I also feel that it's something that's becoming more common at the moment in Nether, probably because of the increase in player base and the quite small map at the moment, which forces players into the same areas. But at the same time, it's something that it can't go too far, or it will totally spoil the PvP elements that they're working on. Rather than just bang on about PvP and how exactly they're going to make players cooperate, I'm just going to sort of sit back and watch how the game evolves. But it will definitely be interesting to see how they bring these things together, because just one look at the community and the forums can show you that there are people on both sides of that fence, and it's how to get both groups together into one environment where they feel they're getting the game that they're looking for, and that really is a challenge in some of these games. The last thing I'll talk about in this video is some of the changes they've made to the game engine, the first of which is by adding support for VAC, the Valve Anti-Cheat System. This isn't something game-breaking or something to shout from the rooftops about, but it was something that was a big worry for a lot of people playing the game, that there was no solid anti-cheat system behind it. So for a lot of people this will be a very big step in the right direction as to how confident they are that the game will get somewhere. The other change that people will be very pleased to hear about in the game engine is that they have improved the FPS quite dramatically on some systems, especially if you use the low graphics settings and turn most of the options off. You will find it runs very well on a lot of systems now. I'm not saying the engine is now perfect, it still has some flaws and a lot of optimization needed, but again it's something that they are focusing on, and I'm pleased to see that the engine is moving forward as well as the content. So that's my roundup of the major changes for patch 5 for Nether, and how they are going to affect the game, or how I envisage they might affect the game in future. Remember, I've put a link down below to the actual patch notes. There were a few smaller bits that I didn't cover in the video, so feel free to click down there, just go and check anything out that I might have missed. And of course, I'd be very interested to hear anybody's opinions and what you think of how this patch is going to affect the game. So thanks a lot for watching guys, and I will see you next time. Woo!